Hey everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Slow Hustle Podcast. Today, I'm excited to chat with a friend of mine, Derek Balsley. Derek is the co-founder of The Art of Education, which is on a mission to provide ridiculously relevant professional development to art teachers around the world. What started as a blog quickly morphed into a catalog of 15-plus online classes for art teachers and an online magazine with daily articles, tips, tricks, videos, and the first ever online conference just for art teachers. Derek, welcome.
Hey, Peter. Thanks for having me. Congratulations on the podcast.
Thanks, dude.
You're killing it,
Awesome.
man.
Thanks. Awesome to have you, man. And we'll talk about your podcast later, which is
Yeah.
definitely killing it. Top of the charts. Awesome to have you here, man. And as always, before we dig into kind of what you guys are working on now, I'd love for you to tell the story of your childhood and background kind of leading up to the present and AOE.
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up on a small farm near Osage, Iowa, really close to the Minnesota border. So if I get an accent, you'll have to forgive me. I got a little bit of cold, so you probably can't tell. But anyway, grew up in a real small town, middle class family. My parents instilled a lot of good values in me. I think we both of them were entrepreneurs. My dad owned his own construction company, and then obviously our farm, cattle, corn, pig farm type of thing. My mom owned her own hair salon, and so both kind of entrepreneurs. And never really spent a lot of time teaching me about entrepreneurship. I don't think directly, but more indirectly, just through their own actions. And so, I think one of the things that maybe is a little bit different with me from other people growing up is I was, I grew up thinking that all the people on Main Street who had businesses and things like that were king of the castle. I mean, they were the pillars of the community. And the older I get, the more I spend time in entrepreneurship and my time spent in college, the more rare I realize that actually is. There's a lot of people who perceive business out there to be detrimental to society or perceive it to be feeding off of people. And that's just not how I see it. I kind of see service through success type of thing. So my background, like I said, is a small farm in Iowa. I went to Luther College there in Decorah, Iowa, where you're from. My wife, I went to high school with her and to college with her, and she's my co-founder here with the Art of Education. Um, I could talk a little bit about how the company got started, if that's sounds good to you.
Yeah, no, it sounds great. And before we jump into that, do you have some stories? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. I haven't prepped you on this, but do you have any stories where you're like, those are some early indications that I was going to be an entrepreneur, like some indications, maybe elementary, middle school, high school. I've got plenty of those where it's like, wow, looking back, I was already hustling and I didn't realize it.
I thought about this a little bit, and I really don't have a ton of those stories. I think, like a lot of entrepreneurs, I wasn't great in school. Um, to me, it was a big waste of time. There was a lot of busy work. Um, I was maybe focused more on, I wasn't interested in learning something unless I knew precisely why it could benefit my life. And so I think a lot of those things I was just very unfocused, wanted to moving on to the next thing. I was a lot, I put a lot more time into sports, put a lot more time into extracurricular activities. I know we did in our area, FFA was a big thing. And so I was on, state championship FFA teams, which is kind of a leadership speaking type of thing. But I never, I don't have the classic Gary Vaynerchuk story where I'm stealing somebody's flowers out of the front yard and selling them to them.
Which is an excellent story, by the way. If you're
That
out
is a
there and
great
haven't heard
story.
it, oh my
Yeah, I
gosh.
wish I had that much hustle.
But no, it is interesting. I'm glad you brought up the lack of focus in school because I was definitely one of those kids where the teacher and your parents are like, "Oh, if you only applied yourself
Right,
more." And looking
right.
back, I think the answer would have been, "I don't want to apply myself to this. I am applying myself, just not to this to what you're telling me to apply myself to."
Exactly.
And so it's kind of like that early lack of focus, underachievement as far as what people want you to achieve, um, and and kind of focused on your own things and feeling like you're just fidgeting in class and you got to get out of there. I remember feeling like just sitting in class and just watching the time pass and thinking, "Geez, I've got so many better things to do
Yeah.
with my
I,
time."
I hadn't really thought about this much until I had a kid. I have one daughter, Nora, who's 3. And, I just think, if I had been convinced to try a lot harder in school and get way better grades, and maybe I would have gone to a bigger, better college. Maybe I would have ended up becoming a doctor or a lawyer or something like that. And I'm just sitting where I am today, thinking, I am so glad that didn't happen, man. I, I don't have the ability to grind it out that hard. I couldn't work it that hard to be a doctor or a lawyer. I just can't. I'm really glad that I went down the path that I did, and so if my daughter comes home and doesn't get the best grades, I'm not sure what I'm going to say. I'm going to say, well, it might be good for you.
It's tough. Yeah, it's tough. And I've got a lot of the folks listening know I have 4 kids, and same thing. I think about it all the time. It's like, well, do I want to put them down that path, or do I want them to do something
Right.
different? And what's unfortunate, and everybody and a lot of folks have heard this, especially if you have kids, is that school kind of beats the creativity out of you,
Right.
and I just trying to have this conscious effort not to do that. It's like, well, if you don't have an interest in what we're telling you, you should have an interest in
Well, the
what.
schools are teaching people to be workers, right? They're not
Yeah,
teaching people to be leaders. They're not teaching people to be entrepreneurs. In fact, a lot of times they're teaching people that being an entrepreneur is a negative thing. That you're maybe taking advantage of people. And it's really sad because that's what makes society roll, right? That's, all of us finding different and unique ways to serve each other is how we have everything that we have around us. And it's really sad that we don't spend more time and energy teaching kids creativity. And, we work in the art ed field, obviously, art, and we'll get into the business here, but we work in art ed, and we see art ed programs being shut down all over the country. Now, regardless of whatever your thoughts on are, spending time teaching kids art history, we should all agree that teaching kids creativity and innovation and to think outside the box and to not just do what you're told and that maybe 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2 sometimes. Being able to teach kids that and to think for themselves is such an incredibly important thing, and art is one of the few times where they get that opportunity. And for us to be, moving forward with this STEM stuff, which is pushing out art, and it just doesn't make any sense to me. To me, it's moving in the opposite direction. We're headed to where all these other countries are headed, and they're trying to head to where we're headed. They're trying to teach more creativity and teach more innovation into their, that's what they really want. And so it's a source of frustration, that's for sure.
I could tell, and I think we're gonna have a part 2 sometime because there's so much stuff that we could talk about that you and I have talked about offline. And so to switch into art of ed,
Yeah.
what's it all about, man? I mean, why this project, why you? But first off, what's it all about?
Yeah, so like most companies, our company started out of a need, out of just a bad situation that needed to be resolved. And so my wife, Jessica, brilliant, loving wife, Jessica, who's an art teacher in central Iowa at that time in a town called Ankeny, she was getting her master's degree. And what we discovered when she went to get her master's degree was that there was so few options out there for our teachers to get classes, graduate courses that are actually relevant to them. So what happens is all these schools, if you imagine your local community college or any college near you, all these schools are very geography based. So they popped up and they said, well, this would be a great place to put a college, and we'll serve the people that are live within a 50-mile radius of this building. And so the result of that is that they serve big groups of people pretty well. They serve general ed classroom teachers really well, but they don't serve smaller niche groups well at all. So art teachers, PE teachers, music teachers, because there may be only 5 or 10 art teachers in that geographic area, that school can't justify the creation, the hours and hours spent developing courses to hire instructors, to develop all these courses are just for art teachers. It just doesn't make sense. They can't justify it. And so as a result, it's almost impossible to find classes just for art teachers unless you're in New York City or you're in Los Angeles. And so as a result, you have 90% of the country that's completely unserved by the market or underserved. And so she was actually, after she got her master's degree, she was actually teaching for another college. And she said, what would be great is if I could teach the things that I was passionate about and only teach it to people who gave a damn about what it is that I was teaching. And so what we wanted to do was to create an online college essentially for art teachers only and have it be exclusive to that group of people. And we reached out to a couple different colleges and said, look, we're already teaching courses. We just want to also do the marketing, also do the sales, also run the website, run them through the courses, use our own server, and then all you have to do is kind of sign off on the accreditation. You verify the high quality, the rigor of our courses, of our syllabi, and then you sign off on the credits afterwards. And we got several colleges to sign up and say that they wanted to do it. Currently, our partner is Morningside College out of Sioux City, Iowa, and they're a fantastic partner. And we are now only 3-4 years into it. We're the world's largest provider of professional development to art teachers. We have thousands and thousands of students from across the world, and we have 16 different courses that are just super relevant to our teachers, super specific, super niche to their particular field. And so it's been a wild ride. We have 20 team members at this point, kind of scattered across the country. They all work remote, and the growth has just been amazing. And to be able to provide that much value to our customers has just been a real honor.
Sounds amazing. And why do you think it's resonated so well? And actually, to back up from my question for a second, I think it's interesting what the web has provided, right? So like you said, colleges could have never made this type of focused effort. Like, the numbers just aren't there. I mean, just financially, as a business, it's like, well, there's no way we're going to build this type of course around the 3 people in our radius that can benefit from it.
Right.
And so it's just the numbers game for them. So totally understand why they couldn't do what you guys do.
Right, even if they had the best of intentions, which they largely do,
Yeah.
the failures, they just have some infrastructure problems that are baked in.
Mm-hmm.
It's, when this college was founded 200 years ago, something like the internet didn't exist. And so there's really no solution in my mind other than going online. And when you go online, now instead of having to be a mile wide and an inch deep, I can go a mile deep and an inch wide if I want to. And with relatively little experience developing courses and all this kind of stuff, we're able to create content that is so much more valuable, so much deeper than almost any college could, because we're so focused and so targeted on our individual customers, on our individual classes, and that experience. And so it's just it's an unfair game because we have just a distinct advantage with being online.
And now, at what point did you realize that this seemingly not insignificant, too small a niche, I should say, is
world's smallest niche? That's what I usually call it.
Yeah. How did you know it was going to be big enough to support a business? At what point? Because, I mean, for me, if somebody came to me as a mentor and said, "Hey, man, I'm looking to start this online education company focused on art teachers," I would have said, "Dude, I don't know. That sounds really small." At what point did you realize
that's the immediate reaction we get from everybody? If you everybody who I tell them what it is that I do, as soon as I get to the word art teachers, they kind of like, oh, must not be a very big deal. And I think what they don't realize is that the internet, I think most people don't understand the scale to which the internet has completely changed everything. So I am dealing with a very small niche, but if you imagine a college that had 90,000 customers, which is how many art teachers there are in the United States, if you had a college that had 90,000 students, you'd think that was a pretty big deal. 90,000, holy cow. So we have the potential to get there. We have the potential to reach out to 90,000 students. And, these students aren't paying $10 a class, obviously. These are graduate level, high level classes that you're going to pay, roughly the same amount with AOE as you would with a college. And actually, we can do it a little bit cheaper, but so they're high dollar, high margin products that we're selling to a very niche group, but that niche group is still pretty sizable when you consider the worldwide market.
Now, at what point in this journey did you realize that you could support a full-fledged business, 20 plus individuals being supported by it, as well as employees or contractors, whatever their status is? At what point did the light come on and you're like, holy smokes, this is like this?
Well, I actually remember. So obviously our website started out first as a blog. So my wife was writing a blog about her art room, and instead of focusing on kind of like, oh, I had a bad day, it didn't go so well, she would really focus on, hey, here's a lesson plan I developed. Go ahead and take this and use it. Or here's management strategies that I use. I hope you'll take it and use it. And so it was very, tended to help the readers. It was a very art teacher focused blog as opposed to a parent-teacher, parent-focused blog sort of thing. So she was a good writer and did a good job of building up an audience right away. And so what we kind of did was we said, well, eventually we want to get to the point where you're not going to have to be the only person writing these articles. And we said, so what we're going to do is we're going to turn this blog into a magazine, quote unquote, online magazine. And what that means is essentially it's going to look the same. We're just going to do a much more professional job with all the graphics and everything. And then we're going to hire writers. We're going to bring writers on that are going to write articles as well. So Jessica will be writing 1 out of 4 articles instead of every single one. And then we, at the same time, wanted to turn into kind of a quasi-college. We wanted to be able to provide those graduate credits. And so what we did was I remember the day we turned them on. So we flipped the switch and we said, okay, here are 3 classes. We're going to launch them today and they're going to be available to take next month. You can buy them now. And I just remember sitting there that night, getting the first, I think we had like a little Shopify app on our phone. And I all of a sudden heard my phone ding. And I never heard it ding like that. Walked over and saw, a $300 payment. And we just kind of looked at each other like, whoa. We just made more in 5 seconds than it would have taken us to, in a couple days at work. And then it rang again, and it rang again, and that was kind of the moment. Like, wow, if we can really go out there and create really valuable classes, and use this magazine that we've created that generates a tremendous amount of traffic to draw attention to those classes, it's really going to be a powerful tool. So we noticed it, from day one, and one of the benefits of being such a small company, being just a blog, is that we were in the black from day one. I mean, it took very, very few resources to get the ball rolling.
I love that story because it reminds me of, you've probably heard it, Derek, where Jeff Bezos, when they launched Amazon, they hooked up a little chime or a little ding, a little ding to ring every time they sold something. And, the first time it dinged, everybody kind of got around the computer like, who? Do you know that person? Is that your mom? Is that my mom? That's not my mom. And
right.
then it started dinging so much they had to turn it off.
They had to turn it off, right?
Yeah, which is a story. I just heard it again the other day, and I just think it's so great. It gives me goosebumps.
Yeah, that's funny. We're not quite to that scale, but I have had to turn it off before because we do a twice a year conference, and those sales, come in a lot faster because that's a lot more affordable product. And so, yeah, I've had to turn that off before certain nights because it just keeps dinging.
What an awesome problem. Hey, babe, I got to get up and turn this app off. It's just
this thing's really annoying, yeah.
Yeah. But, and you touched on, and this, hopefully this doesn't derail our conversation, but you talked about how some folks see business, especially businesses that are turning a profit, as kind of this evil, kind of take advantage type of business. And it reminds me of, I can't remember the name of the company. I heard him on a TED Talk a while back where these guys were actually doing promotion for, I think it was a breast cancer, I can't remember the name of it, but it was a breast cancer awareness or research company.
Yep.
And they ended up getting shut down and going out of business because they got a bunch of bad press because they were their cost to that client was so huge, right? It was I don't know what it was, like $10 million or something to promote this cancer awareness event where they were raising some cash for cancer research. And what was interesting is once you dove into the numbers, you thought, wow, if the folks really saw kind of the whole picture, they'd realize you need this company to be making this type of money because of the impact they're having. And so he crunched the numbers, and I'm going to be, these are all kind of approximates, but that foundation before they hired them would raise normally about $7 million on an event. And then when they hired them, these guys were taking out like full page ads in these really expensive magazines and newspapers. And, like I said, the cost might have been like $10 million to promote this event. And people saw that like, wow, I can't believe how much money these guys are taking from this organization. Right. And then when you looked at the numbers, instead of taking $7 million home for this event for cancer research, they were taking $70 million home.
Right.
And so instead of folks focusing on what the overhead is, especially like for nonprofits, which I know I understand you're not, but for nonprofits, like a lot of folks are like, okay, so what's their overhead costs? Like, oh, it's got to be below 10%, or I'm not going to give any money to this company. Well, essentially, what you do there is you bootstrap and you you bootstrap that organization, and you kind of limit their potential because you're not
Right.
giving them anything to work with.
That's a classic spend money to make money, right?
You got to spend money to make money, and so it's even the same with nonprofits or other organizations. And so, like in your case, if you guys weren't making money, you couldn't hire the people that you need to produce a
Right.
quality product to get some marketing and some amplification out there to create more good and helpful products. And so you
Right.
want these companies to make money, like nonprofits, profits alike, for profits alike. You want them to make some money so they've got something to some resources. Now, I mean, of
Absolutely.
course, you want them to spend it wisely, but at the same time, it's like it's all about reach in the end. So for you guys, it's about reach and how many people we can help. For nonprofits, it's like, well, we need to have some cash so we can have some reach so we can generate more cash to help more people. And so in the end, it's like don't look at these metrics as negative. In the end, it's like you got to keep that goal in mind so that you can remember what your existence is all about. Like, what's the purpose of your business? Is it to help more people? Well, then maybe you need to spend more cash so you can help more people. So I don't know. I just got on my
No, that's
soapbox for a
perfect.
second
And
there.
that's, actually, when we first started selling products, like I said, my wife, had a little bit of a different background than I did. And I remember that she was very hesitant to do two things. First, to allow anybody else to write on her blog, to turn into a magazine, but also to sell products. And it just seemed like well, I'm giving stuff away for free, and that feels good. Why should I sell? And it took me a while, but the basic thing that I needed to convince her on was that you can do so much good the way you are right now. And if you do nothing more than you do right now, that's fantastic. You're gonna make the world a better place, and that's great. But if we can take this, what we're doing, and turn it into something big, and we can, sell products that people value at $1,000 instead of value at $5, that means you're doing $1,000 more good to society than you were with the $5, right? So if you can get out there and make $1 million and affect 1 million people, that's obviously going to benefit society more than if you made $10 helping 10 people. And so we see business as, like I said, service. Success, service through success. The bigger we can get, that just means that we're providing better services, that we're working harder for our customers, that we're trying to provide them with things that they need more than what we had yesterday. And if the net result of that is that we get more and more customers that improve their lives by buying our products, and as a result we get bigger, that's fantastic because we'll put that money back into the company, make even better products, hire even better people. And so it's just a way of looking at the world. And I think the sad part is that even some people with successful businesses don't perceive it that way, and they really hamstring themselves because they can't envision what that next product could be, or it really gives them really narrows their vision, I guess, as to what they can possibly do. So the way we have our business structured is what I call a purpose-driven business. And so to me, the two components of a purpose-driven business are a core customer and a core intent. And so for us, the core customer is K through 12 art teachers, but we actually even take it one step further. We actually have a person that we name and who has they have so many kids and they live in the state, and so that we can, think, so what's this person going to think about this product that we come out with? So hyper targeted, hyper focused on a particular customer, and then we're also hyper targeted, hyper focused on a particular purpose. So for us, that's ridiculously relevant professional development, and what that means is, if we have an opportunity to sell paintbrushes, we're not going to sell paintbrushes because that dilutes our brand. That doesn't fulfill our purpose in life. That's not our purpose. And so every meeting we have, every discussion that we have internally, every person that we hire, everything that we do is focused on that core intent, that purpose-driven business. And by doing that, the net result is that we create a series of products and services that fulfill that purpose. And some of those products are free, some of those products are low cost, some of those products are high cost. The great majority of them are free. But everything that we do fulfills that same purpose, and we become known as the company that fulfills that purpose. And it's your choice as a customer on which products you want to use, but they all do the same thing.
And I love that so much because you guys have this ultimate focus, in my opinion, because one, you from the get go, like right out of the gate, you're uber focused on this very very small, super targeted audience. But then within that, you've stayed super focused, and I commend you guys for that, on what it is that you're delivering. And so I think anybody that's listening, if you have any takeaway from our conversation, it's got to be that, because you've got to stay focused on what your purpose for existence is. And
Yep.
it's so easy to get derailed. It happens to me all the time because there are always shiny objects. They're
Right.
always there. I mean, like you said, paintbrushes. I'm sure like selling those type of supplies and resources would make sense. They
Hmm.
would be helpful for the people that you're working with. You could provide them with
Yep.
probably lower cost supplies that are very helpful to them, and they'll appreciate that. But like you said, and using your word, it dilutes what it is that you're working on.
Right.
And the thing is that I'm such a victim to this too. It's like, not a victim. I don't want to say I'm a victim. I'm susceptible to this as well. Is that it seems like, oh well, that'll only take a few minutes. Like we can set up this supplies division
Right.
and they
Right.
can do this thing. It never takes as much time as you think, ever. I mean, you take like, okay, it's going to take me 5 hours. It's probably going to take you 50. You know, and so then when you sit back and look at it, because hindsight's always 20/20. You sit back and look at it and say, okay, if this did take me 50, would I still want to work on it? The answer is probably no. Then just set it aside. It's not part of your focus. Even if you feel like, well, it's not part of our focus, but we can still help a lot of people. Realizing it's going to take more time than you think it's going to take, and then determining whether you actually want
Right.
to take
And
that
I might
effort.
even take it one step further. Even if it took you no time, it's still gonna throw all your customers off. It's gonna dilute your brand. People aren't gonna understand why it is that you're offering. So I think a lot of it comes from my background in marketing. So I I graduated college, went into marketing. I worked for a tool company in Iowa, and did all of their packaging and advertising and so on and so forth, online, social media. And one thing you realize as a marketer when you get out in the field is that a lot of what you do, you throw against the wall and it doesn't stick, right? So it doesn't pick up attention. And one thing I realize is that you have microseconds to make an impact. If you create a full page magazine ad and you spend $20,000 putting in a magazine, most people who flip that magazine are going to see your ad for exactly 2 seconds or less. They're flipping through. And so if you're trying to push five different messages on that page, nobody's going to read it. If you're trying to push two different messages on there, you're going to get, 5% of people to read it. And the only way you're going to get 10% is if you just have one clean, 100% pure message of what you're trying to get across. Now, if you combine that school of thought over your entire business and consider all the mixed messages that people get when they get to your website, if you're not just being, think about all the ads and messages that people are bombarded with from the moment they woke up. I mean, you and I are recording this at 8 o'clock in the morning. Since I woke up, I saw 20 different ads on TV. I heard something or saw something on the internet. If I had been on the radio, I would have heard 20 ads on the radio. And so the only way to make an impact is to make sure that you're clean and uncluttered with whatever it is that you do say.
I agree with that, man. I agree with that, and then to expand on it a little bit further, it makes for simpler decision making in your team, right? Like
Absolutely.
there's always like this thousand step wish list of items that you want to tackle, and
Yep.
it's easy to filter those out when you're like, okay, not part of our focus, doesn't add to our focus, doesn't add value
That's right.
to the focus for our customer base. Mixes up the messages, etc.
Yeah, and I think for that tool company that I work with, for instance, they had the engineering staff, they had the capability, they had the know-how. At one point, they're like, "Well, why don't we make a lawnmower changing blade changing tool?" Well, they could have done that super easily, but that doesn't fit their mission. That doesn't fit their core customer. That doesn't fit their core purpose. And so it just didn't make sense at all. And so those are some lessons that I learned, just kind of as a minion out there in the field that I think have paid dividends. And so with our company, the way it is now, what we've tried to do is combine two worlds that are failing in some way: colleges and magazines. Obviously the cost of college and everything is going up, and people are starting to wonder what that's going to look like in 20 years. We all know the problems that print has had. And so what we've said is, magazines and colleges are actually alike in a lot of ways. They exist to educate their customers, their readers, their viewers. They're an education focused organization. And what we've said is, for instance, if I graduated in a marketing degree, if I would have had the opportunity, instead of learning from somebody in my college, if I could have learned from the guys who are writing Inc. magazine or Ad Age magazine, wouldn't that have been a lot more powerful? If I could have gone to their class, the guys who are writing the articles that the best marketers in the world are reading. And so if we take the best of a magazine world and the best of a college world and we combine them and we say, you're going to learn from the people who are writing the articles that tens of thousands of our teachers are reading. And we're not going to have advertisements on our website because we don't need to. We'll promote our own classes. And this article that you're reading, it's about assessment. And here are 5 amazing tips for assessment. But if you really want to dive deep, if you really want to transform your classroom, if you really want to get the keys to assessment customized to you, then you'll take this online class. And it really seamlessly fits in well. And since they can get graduate credits, it's an extra bonus.
So I think this segues really well into there's several blog posts that you've written, and I'll share the links to it and everything in the show notes. But you state, and I'll clean up your language a little bit, man. Just kidding. You say content marketing sucks. You've alluded to it a little bit in some of the statements you've made. Why don't you expand upon that a little bit?
Yeah. So I say content marketing sucks, and I say that somewhat tongue-in-cheek because I love content marketing. And the reason I love content marketing is because all the time that I spent in the marketing world was push, push, push. You get out there and you push your message into the magazines. You get out there and you push it into banner ads on websites. You just get out there and you push, 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 and hopefully people click on your ads and come back to your site. But I got a glimpse of it when I was at that tool company of what happens when there's a pull. And so what we did when we came out with this new exciting product was we actually put project plans inside that product. It said, you bought this exciting product. We're going to help you use it. We're going to help you have success with it. We don't want to just sit under your bed. So open up the case, build this first really easy lesson plan or project plan so that you can have success. And oh, by the way, come to our community and post pictures of it and download 10 more new project plans. And all of a sudden, instead of us, pushing, people were coming at us. Where do I get these lesson plans? How do I get these project plans? Where do I go to post my pictures? They're asking us questions. They're coming after us. And I realized how absolutely powerful that was. And so content marketing, producing the basic concept of content marketing is this. I have products that I want to sell you, and the best way for me to sell you those products is to get you to come to me, is to pull, or is to give you good content and have you come get it. So it's content production for the sake of building traffic. That's what I don't like about content marketing. And it's not that I just don't like it. I have no problem with it morally. I have no problem with people making money off of things like that. Like I said, I'm a pure capitalist. I have no problem with that. But what I have a problem with it strategically. And I think it's a very short-sighted tactic. And what I mean by that is, if you're producing content for the sake of, in my instance, if I'm producing articles for the sole sake of trying to get somebody to take a class, that article is going to look very different than if I wrote that article with my purpose-driven business in mind. So if I'm writing that article to push you to a class, it's going to be structured very differently than if I'm writing an article to solve a real problem that you have. And over time, I think people's bullshit meters are really good, just really, really good, and they're getting better. When we watch advertisements on TV now, it's a lot easier to go, oh my God, just ignore that than it was 20 years ago. We were just engaged and like, oh, that's really cool. And maybe that's age, but I just think people's BS meters are getting better and better and better. And so if you can't genuinely produce content because you genuinely think it's going to change the lives or improve the lives of your customers in the same way that your product improves the lives of those customers, then I think in the long run you're wasting your time, and in the long run you're not going to get an audience that really sticks around.
So a word that comes to mind is probably beginning to be overused, if not already, is authenticity. And so
Yep.
you've got a few motivations here to do it your way versus the other way. One is just plain downright more effective. I mean, that method of actually sharing relevant content that you actually want to help people with is just
Yep.
damn right. It's downright more effective. Um, so that's the first step, the first part, and the second part is you're gonna have more fun doing it. You're gonna have more fun actually helping people, and that will
Right.
eventually, a percentage of them will turn into actual paying customers. So that's gonna be more fun. So you're more helpful. You're being more authentic. You're having more fun doing it. But at the
And it's
same
easier
time,
too. There's another one, Peter. It's
well, yeah,
easier
yeah, yeah. There you
because
go,
you're
man.
not sitting there thinking the whole time, how do I transition this into a purchase?
How do I convince somebody to buy 'em? And so I agree with you in that the BS meter, and sensitivity is way up. And so I've got an example of someone that I know. I will not mention their name. In that they do the former process that you talk about. And so her process looks like this. It's like, hey, if you're really interested in making a lot of money online, I've got
Yep.
an excellent process for you. Feel free to message me. And every time I see those messages, I just cringe. Whether it's on Twitter or Facebook or wherever that she's putting them out
And they're
at,
every
they're everywhere. And it's like,
yeah.
dude, come on. Because here's the thing. First of all, you're not being authentic. Because if you were making a ton of money online, you wouldn't be putting those types of messages out. But the second part is you're being deliberately vague, and it's you can tell there's already you can see the hook, right? It's like, oh, okay, yeah, I do. Who doesn't want? Or like the other message was, if you want to win a free trip somewhere, message me on how. What? What do you mean? Like, so to me,
Right.
it's like you're pushing it out. You're really trying to push people to this portal that's going to then try to convince them even further with some sleazy copy. Instead, how about you pushed out a piece of content that said something like, here is a 5-step proven process that I've used that helped me win my recent free trip to Cabo. Like, I want to read that, because I don't feel
Yep.
like you're selling me anything. You're actually giving me some information that's going to be helpful to me, and you're being authentic about it because you actually followed it, hopefully, and you actually won this trip, versus being vague and trying to push stuff onto people. So, I just think that for folks that are doing it that old-fashioned way, you've got to kind of, get on the bus here and realize that people have a choice now. And so you use this example of colleges and magazines, and why are they dying? There's many different reasons, but one is that they used to be the holder of all the information. They used to have this kind of majority
Monopoly.
stake and monopoly on where you could get your information from.
Yep.
Well, that's
Same
not the
with
case
magazines.
anymore.
Same
Yeah,
as publications.
magazines, newspapers, radio, TV, you name it, and they don't have it. Like, we have choices now. And so, like, for your art teachers, it's like, and I always think of Skillshare because I think Skillshare is amazing. It's like, well, you can go to your local college and learn graphic design, possibly from a guy who hasn't done graphic design in forever, right? Or he learned it a long time ago. And that guy's going to be cool. He's a nice dude. I don't mean to dog him. But he's got a limited source of information. Or you can go on Skillshare and for $20, learn from the top graphic designer in the United States.
Yep.
I'm going to pick Skillshare, right?
Right.
I want something that's relevant. I want something that's from a guy who's actually in it and that has some major credentials. And so
Right.
people have choices now and how they consume information and where they're going to be getting this information from. And so that's even more reason to spend some time on the front with a bunch of gives. And I reference this all the time, but Gary Vee and jab, 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 right hook. It's like you guys are jabbing, right? You just keep jabbing with this free information that's super helpful and authentic. And if they didn't buy anything from you ever, you would still be helping them tremendously. And if you want to learn more, here are some classes that you can pay for. But if you don't, that's okay too.
Yep.
We're not going to force you to buy anything. We're still going to give you free information for as long as we're around, and hopefully forever.
That's exactly right.
So it's just the way business is going. It's where business is. It's where it's at right now. And if you're listening and you're not there, get there.
Yeah, I think the upside potential is just so huge, and I always go back to that tool company that I worked for. All these magazines are dying out. They can't afford to pay all the writers anymore. They're losing people left and right every single year. And if you can get past the idea that a company selling up, nobody's going to read a magazine or articles by a company that sells products because they think that the information is skewed or whatever. I just think that's BS. People will read the best content that is out there, period. And so if you can get beyond that and say to yourself, well, all these great writers that they're laying off, what if we hired them and put them on, for a company that's making $40 million selling tools, hiring two or three guys to write articles all day, every day, and put them out there on a blog, a free online magazine, whatever it is. And oh, by the way, all the projects that they're building, all the things that they're doing are using the tools of that company. And we openly say that, we're using our products because we think they're the best, blah, blah, blah. I mean, the upside potential of that compared to the risk of hiring two or three people at $50,000 salaries is just ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. And yet they can't get their mind around it. They can't see the potential because it's not the way we do business. It's not the way we've done it for the past 20 years. That's not the way we're going to do it, and they're going to miss out. And to me, bloggers have some of the biggest upside with this trend. The bloggers have the audience. They understand what it's like to produce quality content for the sake of producing high quality content. Now what they need to realize is that they could actually help their readers more by connecting them with a product or service that they're willing to pay for, and get past this infantile notion that if you are charging for something that you're taking advantage of somebody. And if they would just get beyond that, they could be millionaires. They could better serve every single person that reads or listens to their stuff, and the world would be a better place. But so many of them can't get beyond that.
Well, and the question they have to ask themselves is, do I serve my audience better being here or not being here? Like, what if
Right.
I didn't exist because I couldn't afford to continue doing this business because I'm not making any money on it? What would my readers think then? Right?
Right.
And if your readers were like, yeah, go away, then okay, then your answer is easy, but likely it's not if you're being helpful. And so I think your readers would rather support you than see you go away. And then you
One of
see
my
that with nonprofits too, like Wikipedia puts out something every year for kind of this member drive.
Yeah.
And I always give to it because it's like, man, I use that resource all the time. If you guys weren't around, holy crap! I mean, where would I get a lot of my information that I'm using for certain research? And so I think people are willing to pay. I mean, people are willing to pay to keep you around and to consume your content, and they want you to
One
stay in business.
one example I always give Peter that I think clarifies it for a lot of people is that there was this super super talented lady who started a blog on producing project plans. Okay, so all she did was say, "Here's this piece of furniture. Here are these awesome project plans. I'm going to give them to you for free. I hope you'll come back." And because of that, she built this huge online following. Everybody loves her. There isn't enough of her to go around. Everybody wants her to speak at their conferences and so on and so forth. And to me, I look at that and I'm like, I wonder what percent of the people that are looking at her projects are actually building those projects. She's building them really simple. They don't take many tools to accomplish. In fact, it'd probably take $100 worth of tools to accomplish what she's accomplishing, but nobody does it. And a big reason why is they don't have the tools to get it done, and they're intimidated to go into a Lowe's or a Home Depot to get it done. And so, what if on her site, in addition to all this amazing free stuff that she provides, she also assembled a $100 kit of all her favorite tools, and it came in a little bag that had her logo on it, and it had her 5 favorite tools that she says you can build 90% of projects with just these tools. And you can buy that for $100 right now today. She makes $50 in every single one she sells, and she could sell a million of these things, you know, and uh, and those million people who bought it would be 100 times more likely to actually try and build those projects, and all the hours that they would spend on her blog would be less wasteful, and so everybody wins. But we can't get over the whole concept of, well, I don't want to be charging my people something. So I just hope people can get past that.
Yeah, and it's I think it's one of those very typical small business or entrepreneur's dilemma where you devalue your service.
Absolutely.
And I don't know how many designers and folks that are in the service-based business that I've shared a beer with and maybe gotten a little more heated than I should with, just because I'm so passionate about it. It's like, dude, you need to charge more, right?
Yeah.
You need to stop giving your services away or giving them away for cheap, because what you're providing is valuable, and people want you to stay in business. They want to see you succeed, and you got to charge more. You got to charge it all in the case that you're using there. So
Yeah.
it's really really interesting, man. Well, hey, I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but I would love to switch gears to kind of the slowness segment of the show and talk about how you and Jessica have been deliberate about appreciating life in the state of the madness of a business that's, wildly successful, that has, quite a few folks that are involved in it. You have a huge audience, but you also have a small child, and I want to touch on this hobby farming thing too, because I'm intrigued personally. Because it's just so foreign to me. I can barely keep a garden in the summer. And so, yeah, do you want to talk a little bit about? I mean, how have you guys been deliberate about continuing to enjoy life, while managing this awesome biz?
Yeah. So, I think beyond helping our customers, which is probably the thing that we're most passionate about, genuinely producing products and services that improve their lives and making a difference, making a dent in the universe, so to speak. The second thing that motivates us is, to have a quality life and to live where we want to live near our family and provide our daughter with the life experience that we think she should live. And so we actually, just a year ago, moved back to our hometown. My wife and I, like I said, grew up in the same town. We both moved back from the big city to town. I don't know if you can see behind me, but we're up on kind of a hill here by a beautiful river, which we can ride our boat on. And I just bought it. We have about 70 acres here where I can do some kind of hobby farming, like you said. I got a tractor and I push snow, and it's just fun. It's a good release from the digital world, right? I can go outside and actually drive a piece of equipment around. It makes me feel good. So, um, so yeah, I think a big challenge for us, because we currently, at least, we work out of the home, is finding that balance and knowing when to turn off the phone and turn off the laptop, and not even that, but to turn off my mouth when my wife's want to relax, and I'm like, well, what if we did this, and what if we tried that, and what about this business strategy and this advertisement, and blah blah blah. And, she's much better at the work-life balance than I am. I just because I get so passionate about it, I could probably spend twice as many hours in any given day thinking about business and thinking about the next step, and she's really focused, thank God, on the family and our daughter, and making sure that the balance is there, and so she's telling me to turn off my phone quite a bit and things like that. So yeah, it's definitely something that's important to us, and even when we discuss expansion, we have certain opportunities that we could take advantage of to expand the business fast and furious. And the question is whether you want to, give up some of the lifestyle that we've been able to find for ourselves. So I can quit work at 2 o'clock every day if I want to and go ride four-wheeler outside or go ride snowmobile. And you might not be able to do that if we're trying to build it 10 times bigger with investors and things like that. And so, it's a balance that we're struggling with right now, but we're very happy.
So, would you say that the same kind of laser focus that you have on the business side of things that we've talked about? I mean, what would you say that is your laser focus on the personal side? Is it the attempt at work-life balance that we know doesn't truly exist, but you kind of keep focusing on trying to get there back to center as close as you can and stay there as much as you can? Is it the flexibility that you alluded to? What is it that you have in the back of your mind? You're like, man, I'm not giving up this aspect of my life for anything.
Maybe you could rephrase that again, Peter. I'm not sure. I want to make sure I answer. It's such an important question. I want to make sure that I'm 100%. I don't want to go off on some tangent and not answer the question.
It's almost intentionally vague.
Yeah.
Maybe you caught
Tell me,
that.
what's the secret to life?
Yeah. Well, and is there one thing that you're like, I am not giving up my flexibility for afternoons, or I am not giving up the opportunity to live where I live? Like, I'll give you an example. If you guys, let's say you guys were going to take on investment, you decided to do that. You had the ability to grow your business 10x in the next
Yep.
24 months, but you had to move to New York City. You
Right.
know, like
Right.
is it in your mind that you're like, you know what? I'm not giving up the ability to live in rural Iowa, where I need satellite internet. You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
those the types of things that you think about, or is it that, hey, I'm not going to give up the opportunity to take off afternoons whenever I want because I've taken on investment and now I need to
Right.
report to somebody and I need to be behind the desk from 9 to 5. What are the
You know,
things in
it's
your mind that you're like, these are the perks that I have and I'm not giving them up for anything?
right. It's hard to draw definitive lines because if I was in a slightly different situation, if I was still working 9 to 5 for somebody else's dream, um, I would probably be willing to do a heck of a lot more than I am now. But because we've had the success we've had, because we were able to buy, our kind of our dream property here, because we were able to move home and be near family, I would say it would take a lot to get me to move away from family, to move away from home. And so I don't even know what that would be, and I don't even know if something does exist that could get me to do that. And so, getting me to move to New York City would be a life's work challenge, I think, for just about anybody. So I think as far as the lifestyle, that the work and being able to quit it too, that I could give up a lot more easily because I enjoy work a lot. I'm very passionate about building something that's impactful and building a legacy and building something that impacts even more people. But I think that's kind of an internal debate that we still have. Because we do have opportunities like that available to us. I've talked to actually, I don't know if I'm giving away too much information here, but we've talked to several investors, and the investors come back and say, "This is an amazing business. I'd love to be involved. I wouldn't take my money if I was you. Like you've got good cash flow. You've got you just keep doing what you're doing and maintain your lifestyle." And part of me loves that answer, and part of me hates that answer. It's um, like it would be cool to just do it 10x, right? But at the same time, it's like, that definitely would add some um, confusion or some complexity.
Yeah, and I ask those questions. I mean, part because I'm intrigued, and I think folks listening will are intrigued as well. But in part of it's selfish because I struggle with it all the time. It's like you can take on investment, but there's always a downside. I mean, no matter the
Right.
decision, whether it's investment or otherwise, there's always a downside. And so for me, it's like, well, I give up some control. I got to report to somebody, which I've never done a good job of reporting to anybody ever. Just
Yep.
ask my parents in school. Forget about it. And so, you've got that part. And then, furthermore, for me, it's just flexibility. It's like I just want to be able to make certain decisions. And a lot of times, growing fast is just not. It's not a good thing. It's a bad thing. There's just as many businesses that have failed because they're growing too fast as they were bootstrapped and growing too slow. I mean, there's examples of both, and you can go on for days talking about the philosophy behind them. And I remember talking to an investor friend of mine, just asking him some opinions. He's like, "Well, do you want to grow fast? Or do you want to go slow? Do you want to grow fast or do you want to grow slow?" And to him, it was a real clear cut answer. It's like you want to go
Right.
fast. And for me, it was like even more confusing. Like, well, shit, I don't think I want to go fast.
Right.
I like the pace that we're on, and I like the fact that we're controlling things, and I like the fact that I've got some flexibility. And so, like my answer to the question that I gave you, that was deliberately vague, is some of the things that don't want to get up. I do not want to give up my flexibility, my autonomy. If I, want to spend a month somewhere warmer, which we just did, I'm going to do it. And
Yep.
if I have, some folks to report to that have invested in our company and they're going to be questioning my sanity of leaving my desk for that long, I'm not going to deal with it, And
I told
so,
my wife that you took a month-long vacation to somewhere warmer, by the way, and she's totally on board with that idea. I made the mistake of telling her.
I'll have to talk to her further about that offline.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But I
So,
think this all that really ties into um, it ties into kind of entrepreneurship media, and then also kind of ties back into the school system a little bit. So if you look at all the entrepreneurship media that's out there, they're making they're focused on the companies that are raising money, right? And they're focusing on the companies that maybe have customers that could be anybody. Facebook. They focused on companies like Facebook that could potentially have billions of customers, not just millions of customers or tens of thousands of customers. And to me, they're really kind of doing entrepreneurs a disservice because they might be focusing on this company that's a Facebook wannabe that will have a 1 in 10 chance of ever becoming anything ever. But they raised $500,000 or a couple $1 million, and so that's big news. Well, what about the companies that are out there making $1 million? You don't hear anything about them. They didn't raise any money. They're out there just rocking it, and you don't hear anything about them. And so, which it sounds like a, well, hey, talk about us type of thing. But what I'm really trying to get at is you're doing a disservice to all the other entrepreneurs that are out there by focusing on the wrong things and telling them that the only way that they can make it is if they go out there and raise $1 million and grow 10x, beyond that path, beyond the Facebook path. When in reality, 9 out of 10 aren't going to take that path, and thank goodness they aren't going to take that path. And it ties back to school in that same regard. So we hold up these businesses like Facebook when every town that we're in is full of 5,000 other businesses that are doing well or making money, or online businesses that are rocking it. And we're not teaching the kids that they have an opportunity to start their own small niche business that can make them millionaires, that can help them serve tens of thousands of customers, maybe not millions. And that I'd rather have 1,000 millionaires than 1 billionaire. So that's something that I thought a little bit about that.
And I think, and what you're talking about here is, I mean, you're talking about kind of how success is being defined, and they're kind of
Yeah,
pigeonholing it into this one kind of seemingly sexy thing. Like, oh, they
right,
got funding, they're from these exclusive, VCs and venture
right,
capitalists, and that's kind of like what success looks like. And if you're not there, then you're
right,
not successful. And so I think that kind of goes back to having this laser focus on the value that you're adding, so that you can define success for yourself and
yep,
don't not let anybody else do it for you.
yep,
And I just think that's critically important. And success, I hate that word, and I think that typically it's tied to finances, and it can be. And I think you and I have talked about. I mean, and I've talked to my wife about this quite a bit. It's like it's just unfortunately the way that you can measure whether your business is going to last or not. But it doesn't have to be the only metric. I mean, you can have plenty of other metrics that can drive you and
right,
focus you on kind of what you're doing, and to help you understand whether you're making the headway that you want to make. But
right.
don't let press and magazines talk about or define the success for you.
Well, and as a somewhat successful entrepreneur, I don't need the media, but I feel bad for the aspiring entrepreneurs who are getting this mixed message of what it takes to get where they want to go. I'm worried about people like my brother who are wanting to do their startup, and they read this media and they're like, well, so and so raised $500,000. I'm kind of a failure if I don't raise $500,000. Well, wait, what? Wait, do you even want to raise money? Like, is that the best way for you to go? I don't know that it is. I think maybe you should take this other approach. And I think it's just so misleading for so many people, and as a result, a lot of businesses don't get started. I think they're too, that may be a really main reason why a lot of people don't start businesses if they, really get wrapped up. It seems too big for them, like raising money, raising capital, developing this huge business plan. I can't do that, but I could build a small website and make $50 and then make $500. But because they think that's how it needs to be done, they'll never do it. And the other thing that I think holds people back is they're afraid of spending any time on something that has a chance for failure. The reason people are so drawn to a salary or to getting a job after college is they know that the time they put in at college is going to pay itself back because I'm going to get this job. Well, I think people need to move beyond that and realize that if you spend 100 hours trying to start a company and it never comes to fruition, you're going to learn so much from that process and be so much better employee, be so much better person in your entire life that it's worth every hour. And I think a lot of people get intimidated by the process, right? and it's too bad.
Yeah, yeah. There's so much there that I think could keep us talking for days. I mean, you've the failure there. I mean, it almost doesn't exist. I mean, there's so many examples from what led to the Ford Mustang, etc., that are like out of failure can come massive
Yep.
success. Connections are always being made, and you never know of that person that you met on that business that seemingly failed that could lead to your next venture that's
Right.
amazingly successful. Um, and then to go back to kind of like feeling like you need to get funding because everybody else is getting funding. There's a Mark Twain quote that I just absolutely love, and it's whenever you find yourself on the side of the majority, it is time to pause and reflect.
I
I
love that
love
quote
it
too.
because it's just like bec- because everybody else is doing it, you
Yep.
have to stop and think, wait a minute. You know, now that everybody else is doing this, there's probably a better way to do
Yeah.
it. Because there's people that
I'm
are
a
just jumping on the wagon, man.
I'm
You
a
know.
libertarian, so that quote rings so true. It's not even funny. Whatever my view is, usually about 80% of the public disagrees with it. So,
Yeah, yeah, totally, man. And then you don't always want to be a contrarian, and
right.
I am like, can be definitely guilty of that. But I mean, it's just like you think about like the housing crisis. There's so many examples where it's like, wow, wait a minute, everybody's investing in real estate now.
Right, right.
This is probably a reason to
You mean
pull
I
out, right?
can't lose money buying this house?
Right.
I fell for that one, by the way. We bought at the top and sold at the bottom.
I'm not.
Bad timing.
I lived in Florida, dude. I'm not even getting into
Oh,
it.
it's even worse. Yeah.
And I moved the summer of 2007, and there was a lot of property with my name on it. Um, so, anyways, forget about that. So cool, man. It's been awesome chatting. We're gonna have to do a
Yeah.
part two because I think there's like 15 bullet points I didn't get to.
Okay.
But I'll be respectful of your time, man. I'll put everything in the show notes. But if someone wants to stay in touch and kind of keep tabs on what you're working on, what's the best way?
Uh, well, if you want to reach me directly, Derek, Derek, at theartofed.com is the best way to email me, best way to get a hold of me. I'm on Twitter at Derek Balsley. And I guess the website I post to most frequently, which is kind of sad because I don't post very frequently, it's derekbalsley.tumblr.com.
Cool, Derek. It's been a pleasure, man.
Thanks, Peter.
Appreciate it. Have a good one.
We'll see you soon.
See you later.